Now let's add some constraint systems. Constraint systems will allow us to glue pieces together. Now these guys were really, whoops, adding suits all over the place. These guys were really big, so let's scale them down a little bit so they're a little easier to work with. And we won't have to turn down our damage scale, but we'll be able to tell now that this guy, although he's going to be bigger, is still going to weigh less than these guys. We could also add another object for the end here. We'll just kind of hang it right off the existing shape. We might create this guy, make it have a nice sealed edge again, so we get the best seal we can in our physics here. We'll just drag that guy right up there, get him back to being a square. Something happened to our texture. Let's just reapply our stone. Oh, it might just be a handy hammer bug, but yeah, okay, so from that side it's fine. Anyway, let's make sure it's still working inside the game. What we're going to do is we're going to seal these two items together. We're going to use what's called a physics constraint. So switch to your entity tool. Under entities, we're going to use a phys underscore constraint. Just add that to our scene. Place it where it makes sense. Basically in between these two guys here. So we'll just zoom in a bit. Scale down our grid if we want. And we're going to put it somewhere in there. So it's right on those lines. It's going to be sealing those two items together. We've named all our items. So Alt-Enter to open up the phys constraint dialog here. And we get two entities that we can tie together, we can glue together. So entity 1, which one? We can use the eyedropper if we want and just sample him, chunk 1. Entity 2, we can either select it from our list or sample it. Is that guy named chunk 1 too? Oh yeah, we duplicate it. So chunk 1, we need like chunk 1B. Okay, it needs to have a different name. So we've got our constraint. Select that guy again. Entity 1 is chunk 1. Entity 2, 1B. We'll apply. Okay, we also can add this constraint to a constraint managing system, which we'll do after we add a couple more constraints, so that each constraint that we add to different objects won't compete against each other. If we seal these two or glue these two fizz boxes together, and then we want to glue this fizz box to this fizz box, we don't want them competing. We don't want this guy right in the middle kind of getting pulled both directions. So we'll put it in a constraint system, which will take care of that. We also have our force limit to break. So as we've been talking about, these are pretty heavy objects, and since there's nothing really supporting this, we need to give it enough of a force limit so the force of it simply falling down won't rip it apart from the object we're trying to glue it to. So let's do something fairly extreme, like 4,500. You can play with values, but I'm thinking anything less than 3,000 or 4,000 probably is going to make this thing fall down. And you also have a torque limit. Basically, your force limit should work here, but there's some mathematical formulas for finding out, the best torque limit per weight of your object. And you can set a custom sound for the object breaking. If you've created some large, bridge or structure out of fizz boxes and you want it to collapse and you want some really grand destruction sound when it breaks. Okay, so we'll apply that. Okay, so we've got our chunks named. We have our fizz constraint attaching our chunk 1 and our chunk 1B. Should glue them together, so let's run our map. Let's take a look at our constraint in action. Okay, so it should just be glued right to the left. Whoa, it was glued, but it just pulled the other one right down and then broke in half. So we need to make a little bit of an adjustment to our structure in order to see that properly. Exit that. Come in here. It's just not sitting enough, or this guy's too big. So why don't we just scale this guy down? We took his mass scale down anyway. And we'll make this a big boy going all the way to the edge there. Alright, quick change, save, recompile. Sorry about that. Okay, now we should just be hanging there, dangling off the top of that. And it shouldn't have enough weight to pull the other one off. But with our fizz cannon, yeah, you see him kind of shimmering there on start. Now, if we shoot the bottom, this guy's probably going to break off. Let's go back to our fizz cannon. Just kind of give it a jimmy. You kind of see the seam there moving. Oh, yeah, here he goes. Looks like we could probably get bottom one to make him fall. Oh! Oh! Boom! That guy's mass scale is so low now. But you can see how they're being physically simulated. Let's restart. And how this guy on the top is attached, but will overcome that attachment. Let's get this guy out of here. If we can make him fall off. So let's just scan from the other side so it rocks forward. And actually watch as it topples over. Oh, and it splits in half with the brute force of falling over. And we can still go back here, and each of these pieces... Whoop. I'm a great shot. Oh, that might have been our new piece. These pieces should blow up, yep, after a few shots each. Okay, now let's add another constraint in a constraint system to make it all work together. Alright, so we'll just go back to our entity tool, get another phys constraint, place that in our scene, move it up where we're going to do our constraint. Let's see. Let's attach, how do we attach this piece, that 1B chunk, down to our bottom chunk here. So we will zoom into our top view and kind of make the necessary adjustments here. Okay, so we want to bring up the object properties. Entity, we will select the first entity as our chunk 1B. Second entity we're stealing together is our chunk 3 there. Okay. We can name both these constraints if we want. It may help out. Constraint. This is constraint 2. If we wanted to set up a trigger to destroy these constraints, to break the constraints, they would need to be named. So get our first one, give it a name. Constraint 1. Okay, so now we've got these two guys connected and these two guys connected. And let's add a phys constraint system. Just add system on there, which will constrain those two guys together. So we have this constraint system. Alt enter. Basically, you can give it a name if you want. We just call it, con system 1. You can put your constraint system anywhere you think is logical, typically with the objects we're constraining. And we'll grab our constraints. There we go, phys constraint. There's one. Bring up its properties, and under constraint system manager, we'll drag down to con system 1. Apply. And let's get our other guy. Oh, that's actually not the one we're looking for. Want the constraint itself. System manager, same, con system 1. Okay, so now we have two constraints. We have a phys constraint between our chunk 1 and 1B, and between our 1B and our 3. And we have a system to help them not fight. We can also change our box to give it a strength if we want that to be able to shoot it and break it. Alright, so we'll go down to strength. There's something like 40. Apply. And let's run again. Okay. There we go. Alright, so you see him kind of wobbling since they had a little room off the ground. And here we go. Run into him. Oh, can't get past it. We could shoot at him. We could break these off. 3 shots, and that guy's going to tumble, causing that guy that's sitting on top to fall down. He has his modified mass scale. Not enough for us to grab, but definitely just goes flying when we shoot it, unlike these guys, especially with 3 of them together. Boom! But as soon as we knock it, actually, yep, there we go. We can break them all apart and shoot them up. We might not have set a damage value for that guy. This guy should break, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, there you go. And this guy now only needs 2 shots. He breaks into wooden splinters. So let's take a look at a prefab within Half-Life. It's already put together for you. You'll be able to infer a lot of information about triggers, about physboxes, and other dynamics that are in the game. So let's just a new map real quick. Add our prefab, Noesis prefab, simple room. Put that right in our room. Now, it might not be tall enough for the other prefab we're about to add, but let's just check it out. Back to our entity tool and switch from Noesis prefabs to the prefabs Half-Life 2. There's a really fun one here called Collapsing Tower. Select your collapsing tower. Paste that and just click to enter it into your level. Yeah, we're definitely not tall enough, so let's just grab, whoops, don't want to place another. Just grab, unlink, ungroup our prefab. We'll drag the ceiling way up. And we'll grab our walls and make sure we're sealing. And might need to shrink down our grid a little bit here to get our ceiling in there. Okay. So now you'll see, whoop, now you see we have huge leaks. Let's up our walls on either side as well. You can see how you could easily miss a leak when you're in a hurry. Okay. So now we have this cool prefab. If we click on it, it's a group. We can ungroup it. And we can inspect different things that we've got going on here. But before we do, let's actually take a look at what it does, because that's a lot of fun. Alright, so we have to save it. We'll call it as Noesis. It's not really the Noesis collapsible tower, but we'll just say Noesis tower view, since it's actually an SDK Valve provided, very good Valve provided prefab. So don't turn a blind eye to those guys. They obviously know a lot about their own game. Okay. Now, here we go. We got a guy standing on top, and he's just shooting the hell out of us. We've given ourselves no weapon. That's a problem, so got a little carried away. You notice, though, that he can't, if he shoots the platform he's standing on, you see the wood sound going, the bolts are hitting, things are flying, bolt holes, but nothing else is happening. He's not actually destroying his environment. Alright, let's add another handy prefab. A start location here. Where we got? New game spawn, that's what it is. Add a new game spawn right next to our little entity guy here. I think it actually contains another info start player, so we'll just delete our little guy. Okay, now let's give it a run. We'll actually have a bunch of ammo and everything, and we'll be able to interact with the Valve collapsible tower. Okay, we're facing the wrong way, but we have all our guns. You see him, oh, he's shooting at us. Okay, now let's take a look with just a pistol or something at the metal bars they have. And we'll notice really quickly that when we shoot them, alright. When we shoot them, I just gotta kill him. Pissing me off. When we shoot the metal bars, nothing happens. We don't get anything moving around. We do have these wooden braces. You'll notice different material types. Of course, there's an explosive barrel that looks like it's going to do some damage. But we should also note that just one of these simple wooden braces, they are destructible if we shoot them several times. The whole tower comes collapsing down. Oh, hence the name. There's not quite enough mass in those things to really hurt me, but you could make them have enough mass to hurt you. So let's exit out of our game. Exit out of our game and take a closer look at what they've got set up. Now, the big error means we got a missing model somewhere in there, but let's take a close look at what we have. Let's take a closer look at what we have here. Blow this guy up. Okay. We've got some physbox objects, physbox entities. They have a strength of 0, meaning they're not going to break. We saw that when we were shooting them. Prop data, they've got no prop data. You'll see that instead we've got our, oops, where we go. Got our material type set to glass because it doesn't matter. It's not going to break. You'll see the material type is set to wood, obviously. And some other stuff. Its mass scale is default. Let's see what we got here. Strength is 10. We only need to inflict 10 units of damage before it's going to explode. Okay, let's take a look at some other things they got going on. So basically, any of these objects, look in their output tab, we have this on break Tower 1 break relay. So the entity is called, is named the Target 1 break relay. And what's going to happen is we're going to trigger that relay when any of these objects break. You'll notice all these pieces, excluding the metal they can't break, any of the breakable pieces of this collapsible tower have an output set to trigger the Tower 1 break relay. So what is the Tower 1 break relay? Let's double click. Wham! You see all the inputs, all the different breakable pieces that are going to send the signal for that relay to go off, to send an output. So let's take a look at that signal's outputs. We can zoom over here and take a look at the entity that's causing all this mayhem, the logic relay. Now, the logic relay on trigger, it's going to cause the Tower 1 boards breakable to enable motion. Enable motion is also going to be on these other boards. And the cop is going to set his health to 0. So the guy sitting on top of the tower, he's got no chance. It doesn't matter if we shoot him or not, or if he happens to, land really well on a couple boxes as they're falling down, or hold on to the metal as it's dropping down like some kind of action movie or something. But basically, as soon as these guys break and this relay is triggered, he's going to die. So what this logic relay allows is for any of these different objects to be assigned to one relay, which will then relay an output to another object. So instead of having to have this output trigger, this kill the cop trigger, on every one of the boards within this tower, we only have to set it on each one to go to the relay. And the relay is actually going to do the work. So it's just a little neater as you're setting your inputs and outputs. Yeah, so any of these things break, it's going to cause enable motion on, let's say, like tower struts. So the motion, go to our inputs here, you'll see that motion's enabled when any of these guys go. So as soon as one of these break, these big heavy guys, they have this nice metal piece just jutting out from it. That's not there just for looks. That's actually there to help it, once motion's enabled, fall that direction so that it kind of tweaks our whole tower and messes up. Other entities we have here, filter class. We took a look at filters. They have an activator class. So the filter mode is to disallow Metro Police. That is the reason why the guy standing at the top shooting his gun can't break his own platform. Otherwise, as soon as he sees you, he shoots his board a couple times, causes it to collapse, causes himself to die. That's not what we want. It's not what he wants. So they're actually eliminating the possibility of any NPC Metro Police to hurt this structure. So if you're organizing an assault and you don't want your Metro Police to be able to blow up their own base, typically a good idea to use a filter activator class entity so that those guys won't destroy their own home, as it were, their own home base. Okay, so pretty cool. It's just an elaborately set up structure that really just does a pretty simple thing. And now that we've gone through physboxes and filters, you should be able to create your own.